What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and even though the mainstream media has basically turned its back on Maui, even though they already abandoned the story, for some reason, I guess Russell Brand's sex life is more important than all of the kids that are missing in Maui. But anyways, luckily, there is some local news outlets in the area who are still trying to keep this story alive. They're digging, and it's good to see that there are some real journalists left in this world. But, you know, this is a frustrating story because it's really hard to get any information out of these people. These government officials, from the mayor to the governor, you name it, they are really tight-lipped about this situation. They just blatantly, just straight up refuse to answer questions, or they'll answer your question by talking in circles and never really answering your question. So this whole time, and it's been over a month now, well over a month since this fire, everyone's been trying to figure out who was ultimately responsible for the evacuation call that day during the Lahaina fire, but no one would answer the question. Now, here's the weird part. There were other fires in Maui that day, and these same officials who are acting all mysterious and won't answer questions about the Lahaina fire, they're being open and transparent about all of the other fires in the area. The mayor admitted that he, made the evacuation call for another fire that happened earlier that day, but he would never admit that he made the call for the Lahaina fire, even though now we know finally for sure that he did. And I mean, don't get me wrong, all along that's kind of what everyone thought, but you're supposed to wait for official confirmation, and this dude would not confirm it. He would go out of his way to just act like people weren't even asking him the question. And then sometimes, like, his assistants and stuff would start pulling him away and talking to him when people would ask him certain questions. Here's another thing that's really weird, though. During a evacuation order, usually they will open up, like, both sides of the road. I'm not sure how all of the roads were there, but if you got a 2-lane road, you're going to open up both lanes for only going out, no coming in. You get what I'm saying? So the traffic should have been shut off on one side of the road so everyone could just go out. But that never happened. They never did that. In fact, from what some people are saying, cars were still coming in. It's like police were blocking people from escaping, but if cars wanted to come in and go burn to a crisp, they were allowed to do so. Really weird. But anyways, I want to go ahead and show this clip, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
Joint press conference since August 29th, and KITV4's Jeremy Lee joins us live from West Maui. And Jeremy, you have more on those unanswered questions that remain 7 weeks later.
We have asked who was responsible for issuing an emergency evacuation order that would usher the public out of Lahaina town before fire overtook Front Street. Those emergency powers were used before the morning fire was contained on August 8th, but no public official has confirmed if those powers were used in the afternoon. Take a look. Hawaii Revised Statute 127A13B4 reads, in the event of a local state of emergency declared by the mayor may direct and control the mandatory evacuation of civilian population. In other words, it's the mayor who makes the call.
I'm not sure who was in charge. I think Herman Andaya was still in charge. He just wasn't present. He was in contact with his team, I guess by phone.
In those 4 August press conferences, nobody from the county ever stepped forward to say who was responsible for that communication failure that trapped people in Lahaina town. In the 4 August press conferences, county officials would not detail communication failures in the afternoon of August 8. What kind of communication in the key hours of 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. was ongoing between command and control of police and fire, that being whoever was in your stead at that time?
So we share the same dispatch center, both police and fire here. So all of our information goes to the same location so that it can be quickly sent out to the other organization.
But was that information sent out between 3 and 5:30 p.m. on August 8th? At the previous press conference, I asked what time did police and fire convene in the Emergency Operations Center on the ground floor of the county building?
I can't talk about the EOC on some of that. I'm just going to talk about police ops, if you don't mind. Police and fire communicate. They communicate very well together. We did not close or forbid people from getting out of Lahaina. If there is a down power line, we don't want that was live. We want to make sure that you didn't go over a downed live power line.
But documentation of at least a half dozen roadblocks indicate police were unaware of Hawaiian Electric's claim that power lines were de-energized by morning, or of an evacuation order, which the mayor claimed was given.
Yes, mandatory evacuations did take place on the west side, certainly for Lahaina.
But could not answer the follow-up. But when was the afternoon? The second evacuation order?
I don't know what time that was.
Well, thank you all for your time.
But you gave it.
So we have 100.
But you gave it? The county Facebook only posts at 10:07 p.m. that evacuation orders were in effect as of 9:45 at night. In fact, elected officials have constantly referred to emergency operations for Lahaina happening at night.
The Emergency Operations Center was in full activation that night.
Our radios did not fail, and so we had constant radio communication that night.
But this was an afternoon fire. The fire started at 3 p.m.
Had we sounded the siren that night, we're afraid that people would have gone malka.
Evacuees fled to the water by 5:33. Emergency operations did occur at night, as seen in this video of Wahikuli evacuations at 9:22 p.m., hours after Front Street burned. Mayor Richard Bisson and the county Facebook page both announced at 5:20 p.m. on August 8th, quote, access in and out of Lahaina is now possible via Hokiokio Place, indicating that as of 5:20 p.m., traffic was still incoming to Lahaina. Lanes had not been contraflowed to support an emergency evacuation. Reporting from Lahaina, Jeremy Lee, KITV4 Island News.
You see what type of manipulation tactics they use? Like they literally play mind games with people. They're trying to memory hold this whole entire situation, but even on a smaller level, they're trying to change the details. They keep referring to it as that night, as if the fire didn't break out early in the afternoon, which in many ways it kind of shows that, hey, yeah, y'all didn't really do anything until nightfall. After the fire basically ran its course, all of these people died, all of these homes burned down, and all of these businesses burned to the ground. You know what I mean? But those are just some of the manipulation tactics that are at play here. You have to be very careful. Very careful. And you know, you're labeled a conspiracy theorist when you notice these small little details, but these small little details are very important because they're basically trying to implant in people's heads that this fire took place later than what it did, when in reality that's not the case. What happened was the response was late. Yeah, everything y'all did was that night because during the fires, y'all were just basically blocking people from escaping. And there's been so many people in the area who all saw law enforcement. They all saw the roadblocks, but none of these people saw firefighters. Where were all the firefighters? They were not in the area, and the water was cut off. So even if they were there, they wouldn't have access to water. So like I said, an all-around crazy situation, but we already know that. But we're finally getting a few small details. Details that we may have already guessed ourselves, but it feels good to get confirmation. The weirdest part about it all, though, is how, you know, during that evacuation order, they blocked the roads and stopped people from evacuating. And instead of opening up both lanes and both sides for people to escape, they kept the other side open. It's so weird, but, you know, what can you say? What can you say at this point? Nothing makes sense about this story. Let me know your thoughts, though, down below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all soon in the next video.